Um, I'm with Imam Rashied Omar from South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa. Rashied, what's happening in South Africa where you are as far as the pandemic is concerned, and particularly its impact on the Muslim communities?
Hi, Ed. Greetings of peace from the city of Cape Town. As you know, South Africa is the epicenter of the coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic in the African continent. We have around 50,000 infections and just now close to 1,000 deaths. And the city of Cape Town, in fact, is the epicenter of the pandemic in South Africa. We have around 2/3 of the infections and deaths. Thankfully, our government had a very good early intervention right in the middle of March, and this was in an attempt to flatten the curve, to slow down the rate of the transmission of the coronavirus. But as is the case all over the world, they were heavily lobbied and pressurized, to ease the lockdown regulations. And so since the 1st of June, we've moved from level 5 to level 3. Tragically, however, during that same period, that's just last week, the number of infections and deaths have just surged. So, and we haven't reached our peak yet. So things are looking pretty bad at the moment. But as you know, there's always this debate between saving lives and, the economic concerns of people.
And so we're speaking to you at a very difficult time. There'd be a lot of worry, a lot of fear. How are the communities responding, in particular the Muslim community?
Well, this has been a very difficult and exasperating time for everyone all over the world, including ourselves. But I have been very encouraged by the positive and compassionate manner in which not only Muslims, but large numbers of religious institutions and faithful believers in South Africa have been responding very thoughtfully, to the challenging times in which we live. So, all religious institutions, including mosques, have been closed. In fact, just recently, at the end of May, our President Cyril Ramaphosa allowed religious institutions to reopen with some regulations of 50 people and so on. And many religious institutions decided on their own that they were not going to open. So it's been a very surreal experience to have our mosques closed. And of course, for the first time, at least in my lifetime, they celebrated Adhan, the call to prayer, has embraced a prophetic injunction, in emergency times, to actually say "Sallu fi buyutikum." So you can hear very melodiously the call to pray in your homes. It's really, as I said, surreal. And I think, Muslims have done exceptionally well in terms of, transforming their homes into sanctuaries of worship and, seeking solace and developing their own spirituality. So I've been very, very encouraged by the kinds of stories that I've been hearing. Religious leaders also, including our mosque, have resorted to online sermons. So every week we have a replacement for the Jummah khutbah, the congregational sermon. We have a Friday nasiha, just a Friday message, which is transmitted live via Facebook and YouTube. I've also been encouraged by the wonderful way in which not only Muslims but other religious leaders have in fact come forward to assist for many people who have lost their livelihoods. So the kinds of charitable work has just been absolutely remarkable, especially during the past Ramadan, and people have continued to build on that great tradition that they've established of being generous.
So it sounds like there's almost been a equalization, if you like, because obviously Muslim prayer is primarily communal. it takes place in a mosque. It requires a number of people. And if the mosques are closed like other places of worship, and the service, as it were, or the theology is brought to the home, there is some kind of balance, do you think, as a result? I know one or two Muslim leaders have talked about gender issues, or talked about a sort of resurgence of full family engagement with faith in a way that wasn't possible or didn't happen when mosques were open.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been a lot of changes, that have been induced by these emergency conditions. And I think, as I said, Muslims have responded very positively to them, and have shown the latitude and of the religion in responding to the pandemic. And as you say, I mean, women have, we also have, chosen women to give the Friday, messages, and that's been really wonderful. Their voices have been heard. They've been playing a very important role in the home in terms of leading, certain areas of the prayers and so on, which has been very, very, very encouraging. So there's lots of things. I mean, children also, in the family, for example, during Ramadan, the nighttime prayers, I've heard stories of parents saying, okay, you're going to be reading this particular part of the service, you're going to be leading the prayers here, and so on. So it's been really empowering. And the other empowering thing is that people have had to learn to do these things themselves. So what we as imams and religious ministers have done is to provide some guidelines as to how these things should be done, and so on. But then people have developed their own ways of implementing them in their homes, and the relationship is no longer via an institution with God or via a priest, but it's a kind of direct relationship with God. So theologically, that's been a major change as well. I would say that whilst I'm very encouraged by the kinds of changes and the empowerment that's taking place on the ground with regard to women and children and many marginalized groups, I am not sure. You see, I think that changes usually don't take place in the short term. So in the short term, we've seen this. My only hope is that these short-term benefits will be followed through, so that in the long term we can have a more changed position in terms of the affirmation of women to be part of the mosque community.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it, Rashied? Is that how do you ensure these changes, which you're welcoming? And I was just thinking as you were speaking, the irony is if you're putting yourself out of a job by empowering everybody to be able to lead their own services. But I just wonder how you can ensure that the positive that you've been telling us is maintained when there is some kind of normality that comes back to the community.
Well, I think this is the big challenge for all of us. I mean, and this is the other thing as well. The pandemic has in fact laid bare, it has made manifest, revealed the kind of structural violence, in the society in which we live. In fact, how poorer people have been impacted more devastatingly by this pandemic. Now, are we going to go back, or the damage that we did to the environment? Are we going to go back to what we call normal, or are we going to really use this opportunity of reflection to fashion a more compassionate and a just world order?
And one final question, which I have to ask, because there you are in South Africa, nearly a quarter of a century ago, apartheid came to an end. Is there any legacy or any impact of the coronavirus that sheds light on that, or is it affecting everybody? I think you hinted at the fact that the more socially economic disadvantaged are suffering more than others, as is often the case. But is there anything about the South African story that you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, it's only been 1994 when President Nelson Mandela came to power, and it was the official end of apartheid. So it's only 25 years, 26 years that we've been struggling to heal and reconcile and build a new society. And unfortunately, the pandemic has, in fact, as I said, manifested. It's revealed, it's made more visible the many inequalities, or if you will, fault lines, especially economic fault lines in our society, including those related to access to health, food security, nutrition, shelter and living conditions, and also education and learning. So this is, again, as I said, I mean, it's not only in South Africa that the pandemic is actually exposing structural violence, making it more manifest. And I can only hope and pray that, you know, thoughtful human beings, compassionate human beings will open up their eyes and say, we can't go back to, you know, this same old, that we have to use this opportunity, you know, this very tragic moment in human history, but we can use it as an opportunity for transforming our societies and building a more compassionate and a just world order.
Imam Rashied Omar from South Africa, thank you very much.